marry you today. I should have told you this 3 years ago. I love you. Always have. Always will.
Who are you? Who sent you? Get away from my daughter! Get away from her! Yella!
Ada, come! Come, let us this madness!
The night before her wedding, Ada Nwosu could not sleep. She lay on the narrow mattress she had slept on since childhood. The same room, the same ceiling with the water stain shaped like a bird, the same sounds of Surulere at night, generators humming, a neighbor's television leaking through the wall, the distant bark of a dog. Everything was the same. But tomorrow was supposed to change everything. She did not know that somewhere else in Lagos, the man she was about to marry had already decided he was not coming. Her wedding dress hung on the door, white lace, carefully pressed. Her mother had been up until midnight, making sure every fold was perfect. Ada stared at it in the dark, and instead of excitement, she felt something she could not name, something quiet, something heavy. She told herself it was nerves. Every bride felt this way. She closed her eyes and tried to believe it.
Across Lagos, in a hotel room in Victoria Island, Dominic Okafor was not nervous at all. He was on the phone, laughing, relaxed, the kind of laugh a man makes when everything is going exactly to plan. On the bedside table sat the wedding program. Ada's smiling photo stared back at him. Dominic turned it face down. "By tomorrow, it will be done," he said quietly. "Just be patient. She doesn't know anything." He hung up, straightened his collar in the mirror, smiled at the man looking back at him. Dominic Okafor had always been good at one thing: performance. He knew how to walk into a room and make everyone believe he belonged there. He knew how to speak just the right words at just the right moment. He knew how to make a woman feel chosen, how to make a family feel honored. Ada's parents had believed every word, every smile, every promise. And tomorrow, they would finally understand what kind of man they had trusted with their daughter. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, Dominic slept like a man with no conscience at all. The morning of the wedding came bright and loud. Now you must understand something about this wedding. Dominic had promised it would all happen the same day. The traditional rites in the morning, followed by the church ceremony, then the reception. All in one compound, all in one celebration. It was not unusual in Lagos. Many families had done it that way, and Dominic had spoken about it with such confidence, such detail, that no one thought to question him. But the kegs of palm wine he promised never arrived. The items on the list, he said they were coming. The family that was supposed to accompany him, always busy, always next week, always soon. Ada's mother had whispered her fears to her husband twice. Both times he had silenced her. The man said everything is ready. Stop looking for problem where there is none. That was the thing about Dominic. He never gave you something to hold. Just words. Warm, confident, perfectly timed words. And by the time you realized there was nothing behind them, it was already too late. Ada's mother, Mrs. Nwosu, was up before sunrise. Her hands were busy, but her eyes were full. Proud tears she kept wiping before anyone could see them. "Stand still," she whispered, adjusting Ada's gile with trembling fingers. "You are beautiful, you hear me? You are so beautiful." Ada's younger sister, Chisom, sat in the corner pretending to fix her makeup, but she was crying, the ugly, happy kind of crying. Ada looked at them both, her mother's hands on her face, her sister's joy spilling down her cheeks, and she smiled, not because she was certain, but because they were, and their certainty was the closest thing to peace she had. Her father knocked once on the door, stepped in, stopped. Mr. Nwosu was not a man who showed emotion easily. Years of struggle had taught him to keep his feelings behind a locked door. But when he saw his daughter, standing there, white lace, coral beads, gilly perfectly set, that door opened, just for a moment. He cleared his throat, looked away, then back. "Let us go," he said softly. "Your husband is waiting." Ada took his arm, and they walked out into the morning.
The rented hall in Lagos mainland was full.
Ankara prints in every color, the smell of jollof rice already rising from the kitchen, a hired MC warming up his microphone, children running between chairs while their mothers hissed at them. When Ada entered, the room went quiet for one beautiful second, then erupted. Cheers, clapping, women ululating from the back. Ada walked down that aisle with her father's arm steady under her hand, and for a moment, just a moment, she let herself feel it, the hope of it. She reached the front, stood before the pastor, smiled at the groomsmen lined up to one side, and waited. The music played, people settled, and waited. A minute passed, then another. One of the groomsmen stepped outside, his phone pressed to his ear, his face tight. The wedding coordinator moved quietly to the pastor, whispered something. The pastor's expression did not change, but his eyes shifted. Ada noticed. She noticed everything. But she held her smile, because she had been taught her whole life, you hold your smile. Whatever is happening behind the curtain, you hold your smile. Another groomsman stepped out, then another. The MC stopped warming up. Guests had started checking their phones. One auntie quietly removed her gilly and sat back down. Two children began asking loudly, "Where is the groom?" And their mother shushed them too late. The kitchen sounds felt too loud now. 10 minutes, 20, 30. Ada's mother had stopped smiling. Her lips were moving silently, praying. The small, desperate prayers of a mother who already knows something is wrong, but is not ready to know it. Her father stood like stone, jaw locked, eyes fixed on the door. Then one groomsman came back inside. He walked toward Ada with the slowest walk any man has ever had to take. He reached her, leaned close, whispered. Ada heard the words, every single one. She did not scream, she did not collapse, she did not cry. She simply nodded, slowly, like she was receiving information she had always known was coming. Like some part of her, the part she had silenced for months, had always known. He was not coming. No explanation, no phone call, just a message delivered through a friend, like she was a business transaction that had fallen through.
For 3 seconds, the hall was absolutely silent. Then it fractured. Some people surged forward, genuine heartbreak on their faces. Aunties rushing toward Ada, women who had known her since childhood reaching for her hands. But others, the ones who had always felt Ada was reaching too high, could not hide what was underneath their shock. A woman in a pink lace blouse near the back laughed, not quietly. Another woman crossed her arms, shook her head slowly, the way people shake their heads when they believe they saw something coming that others refused to see. Whispers multiplied, spread from chair to chair like smoke. Did you hear? He left her. Just like that. I always said that man was too fine to be real. These small girls were not Len. Ada's mother crumbled. She sat down hard in the nearest chair and covered her face, her shoulders shaking. Her father, her proud, quiet, locked-door father, stood completely still. But his hands were shaking. And Ada stood at the front of that hall, still in her wedding dress, still wearing her coral beads, still in her perfectly tied gele, surrounded by hundreds of people, and completely, utterly alone. The tears came then. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that fall because the body can no longer pretend. She did not wipe them. She just stood there and let them fall. But let us go back. Let us go back to earlier that morning, before the hall filled up, before the cheering, before the silence. A black car had parked across the street from the venue, quietly, without ceremony. The man inside did not get out immediately. He sat behind the wheel, engine off, watching the entrance from a distance. His name was Tobechukwu Eze, Tobe. He had driven in from Abuja the night before. He had a meeting in Lagos that afternoon. A site inspection for a construction project his company was handling on the island. That was what he told himself. But the truth he had not said out loud to anyone, was that he had come because of her, because Ada Nwosu was getting married today. And something in him needed to be near that, even if only from across the street, even if she never knew he was there. He had loved Ada once, quietly, completely. The way a man loves when he has never learned to do it halfway. 3 years ago, he had gone to Ada's father's house in Surulere. He had dressed carefully, carried himself with everything he had, and Mr. Nwosu had looked at him, at his modest clothes, his small car, his honest hands, and said words that Tobe still hears sometimes in the space between sleep and waking. My daughter deserves better than what you can offer her. He had not argued, he had not begged. He stood up, thanked Mr. Nwosu for his time, and walked back to his car. Tobe had taken that pain and done the only thing he knew how to do with pain. He had worked harder than anyone around him understood, building, growing, rising, not to prove anything to anyone, but because forward was the only direction left. He had built a construction company that now operated in 4 states. He had an office in Abuja, a project in Port Harcourt, and a reputation in the industry that men twice his age respected. But he had never married. And when he heard through a mutual contact that Ada was getting married to a man named Dominic, something in his chest had shifted. Not jealousy, something older than that, something that felt like a door closing. So he came, not to interfere, not to make a scene, just to sit across the street, watch the entrance, wish her well in his heart, and then drive to his meeting, and finally, let her go. He had been sitting there for 20 minutes when his phone buzzed. A short message. He read it once, read it again. He sat very still for a long moment. Then he opened the car door.
The hall was chaos when Toby walked in. He stood at the entrance for a moment, taking in the scene. The crying women, the frozen men, the crowd that had turned on itself, half grief, half spectacle. And then he saw her, Ada, standing at the front, still dressed for a wedding that had destroyed itself around her, tears on her face, back straight. Something happened in Tobe's chest that he could not have described. It was not a decision exactly. It was more like a recognition. He was still in his work shirt, still carrying the dust of the road. He had not planned this. He had no ring, no speech prepared, nothing. He walked forward anyway. The crowd shifted as he moved through it. Confused murmurs. Who is this man? Who is he? Somebody's uncle? He reached her. Ada felt someone stop beside her. She turned and looked up at a face she could not immediately place. A man in dusty work clothes, calm eyes, a jaw set like he had already counted the cost of whatever he was about to do. Tobe looked at her for one long moment. Then he spoke, quietly, so quietly that the people nearest them had to strain to hear. Ada, if you will have me, I will marry you today. Dead silence. Then the hall erupted, shouting, gasping. The woman in pink lace stopped laughing. The MC dropped his notes. The pastor gripped his Bible. Ada's father crossed the room in 4 steps. Who are you? His voice cracked the air like a whip. Who sent you? Get away from my daughter. Get away from her. Ada's mother was on her feet, pulling at Ada's arm. Ada, come, let us go. This is madness. This whole day is madness. But Ada did not move. She was still looking at this man, this dusty stranger who had walked into the wreckage of her wedding day with nothing, no wealth displayed, no grand gesture, no performance, just his word. She asked him one question. Her voice was barely a whisper. Why? Toby held her gaze. Because you deserved better then. A beat. And you still do. Something moved across Ada's face. A memory. Distant. Trying to surface. She had heard a voice like this before. She had seen eyes like these before. But when and where, she could not reach it yet. She looked at her mother, weeping. She looked at her father, shaking with rage and shame. She looked at the woman in pink who had laughed. She looked at the empty space at the front of the hall, the space where Dominic was supposed to be standing. And then she looked back at Toby, this man who had walked in from nowhere, who smelled of dust and hard work, who had offered her the only honest thing she had received all day. Ada searched his face for mockery. She found none, only certainty. She reached out and took his hand. They walked out together, not triumphantly. There was no music, no cheering, just 2 people moving through a stunned crowd. Ada still in her wedding dress, Toby still in his dusty shirt, her hand in his. The crowd parted, slowly, like water that didn't know what to make of what it was seeing.
Her father called after her. Her mother cried her name. She kept walking. Outside, the Lagos sun was bright and indifferent. The street sounds rushed back in. Okadas, car horns, a hawker's call somewhere in the distance. Toby stopped beside his car. Ada stood facing him. The tears were still on her face, but something else was there now too. Something searching. She looked at him the way you look at a painting you have seen before, but cannot remember where. Her eyes moved slowly across his face, his jaw, his eyes, and then, "I know you," she whispered. Toby said nothing. "I know your face." She took a small step back, her brow pulling together, memory and present colliding. "You came to our house." Her voice changed, quieter now, almost afraid of what she was remembering. "Years ago, my father..." She stopped. Toby watched her, still, patient, the way a man waits when he has already waited for years. Ada looked up at him, eyes wide now, voice barely sound. "My father sent you away." A long silence stretched between them. Lagos moved around them, indifferent, alive. Ada's voice broke on the last question. "Why did you come back?" Toby looked at her, and for the first time since he had walked into that hall, since he had said those words, since he had taken the weight of this entire broken day onto his shoulders, his composure shifted, just slightly, just enough. His eyes said everything his mouth had not yet found the words for. Some people leave and take a piece of you with them. Some people come back, and you finally understand they never really left.
What will Tobe say? What really happened 3 years ago, and what did Ada's father hide from her? And where is Dominic, and what was he really running from? Part 2 is coming. Make sure you are subscribed and leave a comment below. Did Ada make the right decision?
Ada, if you will have me, I will marry you today. I should have told you this 3 years ago. I love you. Always have. Always will.
Who are you? Who sent you? Get away from my daughter!